So you want to beat the Scarecrow, also known as the Witch, the Fire Pig, the Bat, and the Big Tree. Well, you've come to the right place. If you haven't watched the first part of my Chapter 7 guide, I recommend you have a look at that first before watching the boss guides. Remember, we'll be going through every single boss, their strengths, their weaknesses, the best way to beat the bosses, and on top of that, it will be with all of their variations. As I said in the previous video, there are 12 bosses in Chapter 7 with one end boss. Every boss in Chapter 7, except for the end boss, have 5 variations each. This may vary with mobs and level layout. There are 3 sections in Chapter 7. Level 1 to 3 is Section 1, Level 4 to 6 is Section 2, Level 7 to 9 is Section 3, Level 10 is the end boss. My name is Teeds, and I make many Archero videos from guides, tier lists, news, updates, and more. Please do subscribe and click the bell for more Archero content. I will be giving a difficulty rating on each boss based on their sections. Do note that every boss can actually turn out much easier with enough practice. The later bosses are just harder because we don't reach them as often, therefore not getting as much practice in comparison to the earlier bosses. With the variations, when I say take out the mobs first, this does not mean ignore the boss and go straight for the mobs. You have to do it strategically, with good timing, otherwise you'll take a lot of unnecessary hits. Patiently approach the mobs that you need to focus on with some of the variations. Remember, you can level reroll your variations if you find one variation harder than the other. Feel free to just reroll it. Let's begin with the one boss that most archers struggle on. Boss number 1, the Scarecrow, also known as the Witch. Difficulty: hard. This boss is probably the hardest boss in Chapter 7. I actually don't struggle with this boss at all anymore because I practiced it countless of times. I actually struggle more with the Area 3 bosses because remember, we just don't get as much practice with them, so thankfully this boss is earlier rather than later. For this boss specifically, I will be adding the full, unedited with no sound, no voice gameplays at the end of this video, if you wish to study it more without distractions. Pattern: fires 8 arched projectiles. Fire these projectiles quite often. Sends out only one firing orb towards you at a time. This orb fires 4 arched projectiles in a spiral pattern. This boss also places the same orbs in a stationary position with the same pattern as the moving orbs. It only randomly places 2 stationary orbs on the level each time. These projectiles will stop once they hit a wall. Weaknesses: walls, wingman, slow projectile, shield guard, and ricochet can help with getting rid of the mobs so you can focus on avoiding the boss's attacks. Tips: stay as far away as you can from the 2 stationary orbs. Remember, this boss places them randomly on the map. Make short tapping movements. Do not run around the level. It makes it a lot harder to avoid the attacks. I always stay on one side of the map, around the corner. Most of the projectiles will be eaten up by the wall if you do it this way. Moving back and forth close to the wall will be your best bet. Do not try and run away from the orb that hovers towards you. The best thing to do is to not watch the boss, rather watch the orb when it fires its projectiles. Biggest tip is to just practice this knowledge on the boss. I probably beat this boss 90% of the time now, before I could only beat it with an extra life or a revive. I recommend not moving to the opposite side of the map. It's better to just get used to sticking to one side of the map as it will soon enough be familiar to you. Every time I'm forced to the top, I honestly lose my flow with this boss. The best thing to do with this boss is to be as far away as possible from it, but in most of the levels and variations, this is not possible. There is one level where you can do this, and I will show you that in the variation part. Speaking of variations, let's move on to the variation. So I will be leaving footage on the side here with the variations as I speak about them. First variation, Scarecrow. Take out the 2 smaller scarecrows first. They're just basically small versions of the boss without the firing orbs. They only fire 4 projectiles in an arch. These small scarecrows can be pushed back by the fairy or the death scythe. Variation 2, the red orb. Red orb shooters that fire 5 projectiles. They're slow moving. It can be a bit difficult to juggle all the different positions however. Take out the red orb shooters first. Third variation, skeletons. I find this variation the hardest as the skeletons will be chasing you. If you don't take them out quickly, they will become an issue. The tornado weapon is great here for piercing through them, so dealing damage to all of them in one go. The death scythe is great with its knockback here as well, piercing with that is a plus. There are 2 variations of the Scarecrow with skeletons, so this is variation 3 and 4. one of them being 3 skeletons placed in front of the boss in a line. You'll want to try and kill them as fast as you can, otherwise you may just be cornered or take a lot of hits either from the boss, the mobs, or both. The second variation consists of 3 skeletons, one on the left, one on the right, and one right straight in the middle on the top. This one may require you to just move to the top of the map because the skeletons actually can move the Scarecrow down. So basically there is one right on the top. If you stand right where you entered just long enough, you can have that skeleton push it down to the bottom. The further you are away from this boss, the easier it is to avoid his projectiles. When doing this, try and run back to the top and also take out the mobs first where possible. And the last variation, the plants. Second hardest variation in my opinion. 2 snake plants that shoot 3 projectiles in your direction and then hide in the ground. Their pattern, they fire once, then they hide, then they fire once again, and then they hide. Do not chase them. I basically ignore them until they're close enough to target. One of them will spawn on the right of you as you enter the level. Preferably, you'll want to kill this one before it hides in the ground, so you only have to deal with avoiding one. And the reason why this variation is also hard apart from the plants is that the level cutoff is kind of obnoxious. So as you can see, the corners here are just blocked off by the water. Boss number 2, the Fire Pig. Difficulty, average. Pattern, fires fireballs that bounce off the wall 3 times before dispersing. Fires 3 fireballs either in 1 row or 2 rows. Fires 5 fireballs with a wider spread. Fires a single line of fast 5 fireballs. These are the easiest to avoid. This boss also follows you around but does not touch you. Weaknesses, wingman, shield guard, and ice abilities that can cancel out the attack of this boss from time to time. Tips, slow projectile may make this boss harder for you because the fireballs disperse after 3 bounces. If you get slow projectile, this can stack up all the fireballs he fires since it takes longer for them to reach the wall. This does not mean you shouldn't take slow projectile, this is just a heads up. A specific tip depending on what the fire pig attacks you with upon entering the level, as shown here on the footage, he fires a double 3-shot attack. I have to move from the middle to avoid the middle ball, but this also puts me in the location of the side ball. So basically, just move all the way to the corner when this happens. To avoid projectiles when it's close to you, it's really simple. You don't have to do anything fancy, you just literally have to move in between the projectiles. It is preferred to stick along the walls and not in the corners. Try and stay as far away as possible from the boss, but it's not that bad if you can't because as you build up your reaction time, just standing in between the projectiles will do. Variations, rocks or golems. 2 rock throwers on both sides of the boss. Fires 3 widespread rocks at you. Take them out first. Second variation, side rock throwers. This is another variation, but there is water blocking one whole area on the level, 1 rock on the bottom left and 1 on the top left on the other side. Also fires 3 widespread rocks at you. Take out the bottom one first and then move to the other side to take out the top one. Sometimes you may have to switch positions depending on where the fire pig is, so you may have to switch between the targets at times. Third variation, the trees. I find this variation the easiest. With this one, there are 2 trees that fire projectiles in all straight directions with 1 projectile. I just take out the one that spawns close to you and I kind of ignore the top one so it's not hard to avoid the one shot coming down. I only take out the second tree if I've been pushed out to its location. Fourth variation, plants. 3 plants, 2 in the top corners, 1 in the front of the boss, right in the middle. Take out the one in front of you as soon as you can. They just attack once with 3 projectiles and then hide, repeating the cycle. I attack them when they're in radius of my targeter. Do not chase them. Last variation, snakes. 4 snakes that will make their way to you and then dash. I kind of just wait for them to reach me. Take them out as soon as you can. Try and keep your distance with them if you're killing them slowly. Boss number 3, the bat. Difficulty, easy to average. Pattern, a bat that takes a lot of damage, so it takes less hits to heal. Hovers for 4 to 5 seconds and then spins towards you. Fires roughly 60 projectiles as it spins. These projectiles will be dispersed once hitting a wall. Weaknesses, wingman, slow projectile, shield guard, walls, and death scythe may help with the bat variation due to its pushback. Ice abilities can reset the bat's attack in a bad way. If it resets, the bat may just attack again right away, making it basically twice in a row. This makes it harder because now you're closer to the bat, making it harder to avoid its projectiles and the collision damage of the bat. Literally count to 5, well 4 to 5. In the 4 to 5 seconds it's preparing its attack, that's plenty of time to move away from the bat. However, I start repositioning myself maybe a second before he moves. Never stay close to it, otherwise you're more likely to take damage from its projectiles. The further you are, the easier it is to avoid the attacks. Watch your character. Once he fires the attack for the best chance at avoiding them. Walls are one of his biggest weaknesses because his projectiles disperse once they hit a wall, so use walls to your advantage. Moving on to variations. Variation 1, the Scarecrows. This variation seems hard, but it's actually pretty simple. You have 2 Scarecrows, one on both sides, that fire 4 arch projectiles. Try and take them out as fast as you can. Move to the opposite side of the map from the bat until you take out the Scarecrows. Once you do, I just move in a short triangle as shown here, well, a very wonky triangle. However, if you're not comfortable with this, just move to the opposite side. To avoid the Scarecrow's attack simultaneously, I just pause if you have a second to spare, as you can see where the attack will be flying. Second variation, flowers. I find this variation the hardest, but thankfully there are a lot of walls to disperse the projectiles. It can be a bit hard to reach the flower from times because it is behind a wall. The flower will shoot red projectiles towards you, one to the right of you and one on the top. Try and move towards them while avoiding all the attacks to take them out. Use the walls to your advantage in the map when it fires its attacks. Third variation, bats. Easiest variation in my opinion, 4 small bats that will hover towards you and dash. As soon as you enter the level, move diagonally to the right to avoid the dashes of the bats from either side of you. Fourth variation, bats and walls, also with 4 small bats. This time, there are walls placed on the map. Do the same thing as you enter the map. You're most likely going to take damage right at the beginning of this variation. Sometimes I get hit, sometimes I'm lucky with the timing and positioning and I don't. Circle around the level until you take out the small bats, behind the walls. After I kill the small bats, I start attacking the boss within the walls. If you want to play it safe, you can just use the outer walls, but I find that it takes longer. Again, move in a small wonky triangle. Last variation, the Archer. A level with not a lot of space due to the walls. 2 archers at the top of the level. Try and take those 2 out first. To set in their attacks, once you see the red line, stand for a second, then rush to the top. You may take some damage right at the start. I did take a lot of hits in this one, I usually do fine, but this is the only footage I had recorded. Just from watching this one, I feel that you should move diagonally to the left before he dashes, as there are no projectiles on that side. I just move up and down, side to side in a small area of the level. Now the last boss, boss number 4, the tree. Difficulty, average. Pattern, jumps a random amount of times. When it jumps, it will fire 8 projectiles in all directions. When it's not jumping, it will spray a bunch of projectiles in the direction of where you are. If it's not doing that, it will throw a big projectile towards you where it will spawn a small tree that jumps and fires 1 projectile in 4 straight directions. Weaknesses, wingman, slow projectile, shield guard, ice abilities for cancelling effects, walls, since the projectiles will disperse. Tips, if you do not want the devil, there is a way to take 1 damage to despawn the devil. The blast of the AoE will only deal 1 damage when it lands from a jump. When the tree jumps, focus on avoiding the jumps instead of attacking since we won't know how many jumps he'll do. Always run from one side to the other as where you are will be his new position. The further he is, the easier it is to avoid his projectiles. When he fires his projectiles, watch your character for the best chance of not taking hits. When he spawns a tree, focus on getting rid of it. If you're on the opposite side of the map and you cannot see him, you'll notice his shadow when he is jumping. For variations, the mummies. One of the harder variations. 4 bouncing mummies will be placed on the map. They do not chase you, they just jump around randomly. Do not chase them. They will eventually be killed over time. Tornado, death-size pushback, ricochet, and piercing can help take the pressure off here. Variation 2, trees. 2 small trees that fire 1 projectile in 4 straight directions. Focus on getting rid of the one that is closest to you. You'll be pushed to the top eventually, where you can take out the second one. Third variation, the bombs. 2 bombers that throw slow bombs towards you from time to time. Their attacks are easy to avoid. You will eventually kill them. Fourth variation, the bats. 2 bats that will dash towards you and then hover. Focus on getting as far away as possible from them if you cannot kill them quickly. They will eventually be taken out. Last variation, the wolves. 2 brown wolves that go in all directions. They do not directly target you. You'll also eventually take these out as you have to reposition yourself on the map. You can somewhat see what direction they're going to charge at. They are the tankiest of all the mobs in these variations, so it can take quite a bit to kill them. And that is all for the Section 2 bosses of Chapter 7. I will leave a link in the description box below if you need help with Section 1 and Section 3 bosses. Please do subscribe and click the bell to be notified for more Archero guides, tier lists, updates, and more. A like and comment would be super rad, and I thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again. Bye!